So you want me to not eat, then you want me to go do a bunch of kettlebell swings, and you want me to do some kettlebell snatches, and you want me to do some thrusters, and then finally some 5x5s, and you're telling me that it's going to work to my advantage. Look, the fasting world gets a little bit of a bad rap. It really does, because people automatically assume that when you don't eat, your performance is going to decline. And although that can make sense in some different categories, we have to look at how fasting works when it comes down to sort of the biochemical and mitochondrial changes that occur over the long term, okay? CrossFit is a perfect example of a sport that is requiring a nice band of aerobic and anaerobic intensities. Okay, you need a little bit of everything. Really, arguably, like some of the best athletes in the world are coming out of that community. And when you look at how fasting works, you can see that it could actually be very beneficial. But one of the problems that we face is that people automatically assume fasting either means you're not gonna eat at all and you're gonna starve, or it means that you're combining fasting with keto, because those groups are so closely related. And I'm partially to blame for that, because I talk about keto and fasting together a lot. But with sports like CrossFit or real power-driven sports, combining fasting with carbs is a very effective strategy. We're gonna break down why and how it might help you improve your performance. Okay, so when you're fasting, you're achieving a lot of the same benefits that you would get from keto. Okay, in terms of mitochondrial density, mitochondrial mass, things like that. We'll break that down in a minute. What that means is you're improving your ability to manufacture energy. You're improving your ability to form ATP from different energy substrates. Okay, just like a marathon runner will go out and run, they build a high degree of what's called mitochondrial density. Mitochondrial density allows you to have a higher aerobic capacity. It allows you to be better at utilizing fats as a fuel source. Now, what's kind of interesting is when you look at a lot of sports that involve power, like even soccer, even American football, things like that, people misconstrue it and they think that they need more power in those sports than they actually use, okay? So a lot of times they'll think, I need a lot of carbs for my soccer game. Well, soccer is a perfect example where you have mostly aerobic activity and little short spurts of anaerobic, right? Well, in that case, it makes way more sense to be good at using fats because you're running around a lot and you're predominantly using that. Even American football, okay? Even though it seems like it's quick bursts, you're still not tapping all the way into that anaerobic threshold all the time, depending on the position, of course. With CrossFit, you're very clearly using both, and that's a lot of the dynamic there. You have, metcons that are gonna definitely exhaust you in an aerobic capacity, and then you're going right into that lactate threshold in a different capacity very quickly. So how can fasting help you there? Well, there's this thing called fat adaptation. Okay, and fat adaptation is where your cells become very good at using fats as a result of depriving your body of nutrients, especially during high energy demand. Okay, so let's say, for example, you have not eaten. Okay, you're really hungry, you're fasted, and then you go and you do a workout. Well, obviously that's gonna put a pretty serious demand on your body. It's gonna upregulate something called AMPK, okay? And AMPK is going to phosphorylate, it's going to signal all kinds of different things in the body to make it so that your body gets really efficient at utilizing stored fuel. Okay, one of which is activating what's called PGC1A, which improves mitochondrial biogenesis. Mitochondria is where energy is manufactured, and the more mitochondrial biogenesis that you have, the more mitochondrial mass that you have, and the more energy factories that you have. And that's going to carry over not just for aerobic work, but also for anaerobic work. The other thing that's very important is as you get more fat adapted, as you fast more frequently and get your body used to that, you develop the ability to use fats at a higher intensity. Let me repeat that. The more that you condition your body to fasting, you learn to use fats at a higher intensity. That is so powerful for a CrossFit athlete because that means ordinarily, let's just hypothetically say, you start kicking into anaerobic mode at like 60% of your max heart rate, purely hypothetical. Well, that means that you have 60 to 100% of your intensity that you're having to draw carbs from. You're going to deplete carbs much faster than you're going to deplete fat. So you're gonna bonk quicker because you're gonna start exhausting your glycogen stores much faster. But let's, again, hypothetically say you can use fat up to 75% of your max intensity. Well, now you only have to use 25% of your intensity from carbohydrates. So you have much more sustainability and you get to preserve your glycogen for when you really need it. So what's going to be the result of that? Towards the end of the event, you're going to have more in the glycogen tank left over to have those maximal or submaximal lifts than your competitors. Or your teammates or whatever, right? Because you're going to be in a spot where you still have glycogen spared. That's the nice thing. Fasting trains your body to use fat at a higher intensity, thereby being more glycogen sparing. It's like, now I have the ability to tap into this glycogen that everyone else has run out of because I spared it throughout the entirety of the event. Now, obviously, recovery is a very big piece, especially with CrossFit, because you're really beating up the body pretty hard, right? So you get the opportunity to get more out of recovery. Now, the most important thing, I would say, when you are fasting and you're doing especially high intensity work, becomes extraordinarily important to have copious amounts of protein, okay? Probably even more so when you're fasting than anything else because you have to compensate for the muscle protein breakdown that naturally occurs through a fast. It's a survival of the fittest mechanism. So even your muscle cells, let's for simple layman's terms, you're breaking down sort of wasted muscle fibers that aren't that good, muscle cells that are kind of like aren't contributing much. You're breaking them down, muscle protein breakdown, and then you have to rebuild them. So you extra rebuild because you've been fasting. Today's video sponsor is ButcherBox. If you check them out, they are an online meat delivery company that has grass-fed, grass-finished beef, tremendous sockeye salmon, really good wild-caught stuff. They've got cod, they have chicken, they have everything you could think of. They've got so much cool stuff. It gets delivered right to your doorstep. They've been a sponsor on this channel for like almost half a decade. They are tremendous. And if you want to use that link down below, you can check them out and get some grass-fed, grass-finished beef. They've got ribeyes, they've got sirloin, they've got every kind of cut you could probably imagine. So again, use that link down below, and a big thank you to them for the continued support. And I do know that some members of their team are big CrossFitters, so I know they're going to love this. So check them out down below. One of the biggest pieces for recovery is going to be your insulin sensitivity as well. Okay, so when you are doing any kind of CrossFit workout, you are really developing a lot of insulin sensitivity. Any workout, really. Okay, at the end of a workout, you're very insulin sensitive. But fasting also improves insulin sensitivity significantly. There's a study that was published in the journal Clinical Nutrition that took a look at 8 weeks of alternate day fasting. And they found after just 8 weeks, there's a significant improvement in fasting insulin levels. Okay, this is just one study. Almost every single fasting study I've seen that looks at metabolic markers demonstrates that there is a reduction in fasting insulin and an improvement in fasting, or improvement in insulin sensitivity rather, and a decrease in insulin resistance. What does this have to do for your recovery? Well, the more sensitive that you are, the more that you'll be able to soak up the carbohydrates that you do eat after a workout, and more importantly, soak up the protein that you eat after a workout. Okay, if you are more insulin sensitive, that means more GLUT4 translocation, that means more muscle cells are able to soak up carbohydrates, stimulate that mTOR anabolic response to spearhead recovery. But then there's another thing called autophagy. Now, you've probably heard me talk about it before, but autophagy is just cellular recycling that occurs during a fast, okay? So basically, like your cells say, I am starving, so I need to eat something. So they start breaking down components of themselves for fuel, okay? Well, this happens at a muscle level too. And muscle autophagy is very important, especially when it comes down to the activity of what are called satellite cells. Okay, satellite muscle cells, if here's your primary muscle, your muscle tissue, a satellite cell is kind of hovering on the top of it. When it gets activated, it fuses to the main muscle belly, right? And then recovery starts. So when we have the proper activation, we're basically activating new muscle cell nuclei from these satellite cells. Autophagy is sort of turning them on. So you actually get a very powerful effect when it comes down to proper, good quality muscle. And as long as you're following up a fast with good quality protein, then you're really putting yourself in a great spot. And what about training during a fast? Training during a fast can work to your huge advantage as well, simply because you're going to only accelerate the adaptation that occurs. But remember this, when you train in sort of a food or calorie debt, then when you do train with some food in your system, it's like you're running on jet fuel. Your body is so used to being in a deprived state. Then when you go to a more important WOD, or you go more important event, or maybe CrossFit games, then you can fuel properly and you'll be at an entirely different level. Now, considering the fact that we are doing fasting with carbohydrates, you want to make sure that the bulk of your carbohydrates are going to be consolidated towards the end of your workout, okay? You want the bulk of your carbohydrates coming in post-workout along with your protein, and you want to slowly wean them off throughout the course of the day. Now, I know CrossFit is a big fan of more of a paleo-esque approach, so I would say like limiting the grains, going for more of the things that are going to be relatively high glycemic but still provide you with the carbohydrates that you need without going overboard on the grains. And as you get towards the end part of the day, start reducing those carbohydrates a little bit more and increase the protein and decrease the fats too. So you're going to kind of tilt more towards high carb post-workout and then wean off as the day goes on, keeping protein slightly even, getting a little bit higher in the evening to compensate for the lack of carbs. If you want me to do more videos breaking down how fasting works within the CrossFit realm or power sports world or athletics world, just let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll see you tomorrow.